And we are live. Welcome back to Aussies taking over the NBA. It is a late Monday night. The NBA is still in full swing, but we have a Aussie Boomers wrap to do.
Interesting large squad of Aussies. Yeah, just a massive squad. Not really sure why they needed to give all these men hope, but
Yeah, it's a lot of dudes, man. Just looking through it here, Baines obviously, and then Ryan Brokov ex NBA, Mitch Creek ex NBA, Dellavedova still with that concussion. We'll talk about that as well. Dante Exum NBA. Looking through Josh Green NBA, Joe Ingles NBA, Thon still in the NBA. Is he still contracted, Thon?
no, he's not. He got waived by.
Okay, so
Cleveland.
hopefully he'll be back in the NBA soon. Patty Mills, Ben Simmons, and Matisse Thybulle. Obviously, he is nationalized now. He will be in this team. Very interesting to see how he goes. We'll do a little talk about that later on in the pod. But as always, you can like, share, and subscribe on Aussies Taking Over the NBA. On Apple Podcasts, on Podcast Addict, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Anywhere you type in Aussies taking over the NBA, you will find us talking about Aussies in the NBA. And now this Boomer squad. So take us all the way back to this Tokyo Bizzo where the whole Olympics was postponed.
Yeah, so obviously postponed because of the pandemic. But the weird thing is like there was some rumblings earlier this year that the Olympics was going to be cancelled, but I don't think Japan wanted that because obviously they've spent so much money getting this ready. So it's obviously going to be a national Olympics where there's going to be no international tourists, so only Japanese locals and obviously all the international delegates that will be there. It's a big effort during Rona. I mean, Japan hasn't been hit as hard as some other countries, but they've still, had a couple 100,000 cases. I think they're just all really hoping that these vaccinations, take place pretty early on. Maybe it's something that they look at from a bit of a COVID perspective, vaccinating all the athletes before they arrive, so that there's some at least. And I'm cool with that. That's fine.
Yeah,
as long as,
sure.
Frontline healthcare workers, all those get them as well. And the elderly, you can, share, save 20,000 doses out of how many millions you have for to get the Olympics on. I think everyone's sitting at home bored and would like to see a spectacle and feel good about things. But
there's also the precautions you can take to mitigate it, wearing masks, etc., social distance.
Vitamin D. It's hard in competitive sports. We've seen that throughout the NBA this year. You can't essentially once you get to the Olympics, you can't just start putting people in COVID protocol, and that would be an interesting thing. Is that how do you even do that? You can't really track and trace. You just got to put the whole team out. There's only 2 weeks that you can play it. So that team just goes because someone was near COVID. So I think that obviously they're working in the background to see how this thing works out, but it's going to be interesting as well because there's probably 2 teams that are going to be closer to the finals and closer to this Olympics than others, and that's Philly and the Jazz. We've got 3 players coming out of those 2 teams. One probably being the most important in Ben Simmons. What happens if Philly makes it to the finals and there's a week and a half before the final game of the finals, Game 7, and the start of the Olympics? Does that give them long enough to go in quarantine, which they may have to do? It's all going to be very interesting to see kind of what happens if that does even go ahead.
Hey, don't discount Patty Mills, deep player from the Spurs.
Man, Patty's having a really whacked out good season. He's so good.
And he always, when he pulls on that green and gold, man,
he's
a massive
he's
part
the player
of this
the tournament. He's always the player of the tournament. He always gets robbed, I think. He's always like 30, 35 points a game. It's just the Patty show. Such a crafty FIBA player. It's ridiculous.
So, but a different, like, we've got to admit, there's going to be a different setup with Ben Simmons in that lineup. I think he's probably a more important player, Ben Simmons. But in terms of how those lineups work out, I think it's just going to be a different Patty. Like, I think it might be a better Patty. It might be a slightly less.
I think it's going to be a less tired Patty. He's not playing like 39 out of the 40 minutes and then having to close out games, Patty. I think that there's
over 9,000 usage, Patty. Yeah, which should be good.
9,000.
Yeah.
I think there's a bit more. I mean, this it's a shame that the Olympics kind of didn't happen last year, and Bogut wasn't a part of it. And
yeah, let's just talk. So, if that had happened last year, you've still got Bogut. I think you've probably got a better Thon Maker. You probably don't have half of these NBL guys. You got a healthy Dante. Oh no, I think he was injured last year. You don't have Dante. You got a healthy Delhi. And probably you've got a better Brokoff and Baines. So I think to move it from there to now is, I don't know, I think it kind of has taken a little bit out of us.
I'll play devil's advocate here. I think that Bogut's probably one of the best FIBA centers to ever play the game in terms of his ability to shot block. But again, he was in the twilight of his career, hadn't played NBA, coming off an deep NBL run. Bainesy showing us in that World Cup how good he can potentially be in the FIBA game. He's being a massive body in the middle and then slinking out and shooting threes unguarded. Do you switch it for do you switch it up this year for a potential like a Humpho Baines convo? I think Humpho is probably the only NBL player that will play in this tournament. I think with his form, his ability to shot block, and him actively playing the FIBA game, it makes sense for him to play back up to Bainesy in this role. But I do think our team is slightly better this Olympics, and here's why. I think you've got
could do an ESPN promo.
A nationalization of Matisse Thybulle,
yeah,
which is defensively, him and Simmons are just menacing in NBA. Bit harder in FIBA though, because you got less fouls to give, so you could be in a bit of foul trouble early, and these guys do potentially get into a bit of foul trouble early. But that's that you can't imagine how good that is in the 2-3 space to have Matisse Thybulle coming into that team. You've got the likes of Josh Green coming through. You can definitely sling a Thon in there as like a deep 4-5 rotation piece. You've got Ben Simmons a year better. You probably don't want to play Delhi in this team. I don't think a Delhi Simmons combo works well at the guard position. You probably want a Patty Simmons combo with a Thybulle at 2 guard. You want some scoring options. Josh Green potentially playing that small forward wing position. You've got more length. I think you've got more length in defending this year, and you're going to need that against a potential NBA dream team. You're going to need more crafty players who play against these guys night in, night out, which is something that we've never had. But now we do. You could put 5 players on the floor and 2 players in the rotation that literally play this team these guys 99 out, like Ingles, crafty guys. Can you imagine like a 3-5 pick and roll with Humpho and Ingles? Like it's those kind of things that you would probably see a bit more of this time around, as opposed to last time. Look, I still think we really had a good team in that, and Ben Simmons would have added even further depth. My greatest, I suppose we never saw Jonah Bolden play in that World Cup, and I thought he was getting into really good form. He was coming off a great year with Philly, breakout year, and then it all just went to absolutely nothing. Like
pear-shaped. It's gone off the deep end.
Realms. Like, I think he obviously signed that 4-year deal with Philly, and then had a bit of falling out with the Australian team, and that led to a bit of a falling out with the 76ers. Then got waived, and then got a 10-day contract with Phoenix, and has never been seen since.
So where in the world is Jonah Bolden at the moment? A new segment.
Man. I think I follow him on Instagram, so I'm just like, where is this dude? What's he doing? And it's just he's out doing his thing. He's hanging out with his old man in some cold places in America. I don't exactly know where he's at, but it's a shame because watching him play, night in, night out as a kind of backup 4-5 for Philly, man, the dude could stretch the floor and block, and could defend.
It's kind of a bit of a discount Giannis.
Yeah, like that weird kind of Giannis shape, but was a more effective 3-ball shooter, and could easily and had some playmaking skills. I think much more playmaking skills than like your Thon or your Humpho, which is what you want at the 5, because that's what Bogut could play at the elbow, which Bogut was so famous for which would have been very dangerous with Ben Simmons cutting and Matisse Thybulle cutting the lane. So,
yeah, even with Joe Ingles as well.
yeah,
Running
man.
pick and roll with him. So that was the one thing I wanted to let's break it down position by position. One of the main things is there's no real 7 foot plus center on this roster. So I'll just read them out.
What's Humfo? Humfo is 7 foot.
I think he's 6'11". But I'll read them out while you're looking that up. So Dengadell, Aaron Baines, Ryan Brokoff, Xavier Cooks, Mitch Creek, Matthew Dellavedova, Dante Exum, Josh Giddey, Chris Golding, Josh Green, Isaac Humphries, Joe Ingles, Nick Kay, Jock Landale, Mitch McCarron, McDowell White, Will Magnay, Thon Maker, Paddy Mills, Brock Motum, Mitch Norton, Duop Reith, Ben Simmons, and Matisse Thybulle. Actually, Jonah Bolton probably would make that team. The other guy, Joe Luala-Chul, I don't know if he's declared for Australia. He's been playing pretty well for Melbourne. It's a bit stiff for him to miss out on this team. For other guys like Brock Motum, he's a 7-footer.
Well, this is the thing. I think Bryce Cotton didn't get in time. That would have been, kind of a bit of an out for Paddy to play less minutes. Bryce Cotton could come on and play 8 minutes a night and have dimes dished up to him left, right, and center from Ben Simmons, and some good screening off Bainesy, who does hilarious walking screens in FIBA. But he would have been a guy that could put up 5 shots and hit and get hot out of nowhere and put teams away. And I think what the big problem is that how do we take this scoring burden off Paddy Mills at the end of games? Because you've got Paddy and Delhi on the floor, you've got undersized guards, and that was a big issue. But now you've got Simmons and Thybulle on the floor, and those Paddy at the end of games doesn't become a defensive issue because you've got guys that can play the zone trap and just run guys off the line, block and defend like no one else on earth.
So let's go center position by position. Start at center. 3 centers: Aaron Baines, Jock Landale, Nick Kay, Isaac Humphries, Will Magnay. Sorry, that's 4, isn't it?
Yeah.
You would think Magnay is going to be cut. Yeah. Probably Nick Kay is going to be cut.
Yeah.
Although Nick Kay had a pretty good breakout World Cup.
Look, Nick Kay is like the cusp. He's the cusp of if you're playing Commonwealth Games, if you're playing a FIBA Oceania tournament, and all your other players are playing club, and you're playing a different kind of a lead in qualifying games, Nick Kay's the first guy you pick out of anyone.
Yep, and he is 6'9" though, so I don't know if they're going to want to go with a bigger center. But I don't know. I think between him and Humphries, it's kind of a line ball. I'd have to look at those two guys side by side. I think Humphries, from what we've seen so far, I wouldn't be upset if he was picked.
Yeah.
So that third guy to go with Baines. And I think Landale's definitely going to get in as well. He's kind of a bit of a darling of the setup. Although it's a new setup, so it's Gorgian now, isn't it? It's not
it is Gorgian. It's not
on safety harness. And Jock Landale was a bit of a darling of that Lahanis. Lamanis?
Yeah, Lamanis.
I think you originally called him Lahanis.
Yeah, Lahanis.
And then Thon Maker too, which is another one I didn't mention before. It's a lot. There's a lot of dudes there.
It's good depth. Look, Thon I'm taking. If it's a 12-man roster, I'm taking Thon because he can play 4-5. You can stretch the floor at 4. And you can have this kind of rotation of Landale, Humphries, Baines, and Maker in this 4-5, 4 out of your squad. And that gives you some stretching, but it also gives you some rim protection. Thon is pretty good at rim protection. Like, it's not horrible. And he has look, man, that series he played against the Bucks, he was ridiculous. Like, that was peak Thon. And I think
Celtics.
We need to see him. That's
for the Bucks.
Played with the Bucks, against the Celtics. That's where we need to see him regain his heights at. And that is the potential of Thon. So that would be good to have. I'd take Brokoff with me because he's a crafty, small forward that can shoot the 3 ball. That's 5. I wouldn't take Dengadell, too young. Definitely one for the future. Cooks, his injury, he's not playing many games in the lead up. You don't take him. Delhi, just put Delhi to the side for a minute. Exum, do you take him if he's fit?
I think you take him. Just because of his versatility, if he's fit.
Yeah, you take Utara. So that's 6. We're at 6 now. Josh Giddey, probably a bit young, but good to be in the squad. Chris Goulding, he's an interesting one, man, because if he's fed properly, he's good.
He's a reliable shooter. I think he was
That's
another darling of that Lamana system as well.
yeah, rightly so, man. He's been
Yeah,
great for the green and gold for
he's been really
years.
good actually. I probably would take him.
Yeah, so that's 7. I don't take Josh Green because he's young and hasn't had enough game NBA time, but he's one for the future. Joe Ingles, 100%. That's 8. You don't take Mitch McCarron. You don't take William McDowell White. You don't take Will Magnay. Patty Mills, 9. Brock Modem, no. Mitch Norton, great that he got a mention, but no.
Yeah.
Duop Reith, no. And then you go Ben Simmons and Matisse Tybalt, which takes you 11, and then you go back and take Delhi, which gets you to 12.
Yeah, there's a whole like his concussion thing. We'll talk about that. Possibly leaving the sport. He sustained that injury somewhere in preseason between the Knicks game and I think it was the Bulls. He's on the Knicks bench, did not play back tightness, and then he's on the Bulls. In the Bulls game, he's on the bench, did not play concussion. So I think somewhere in there he's gotten a concussion. It sounds like a pretty bad one too.
Yeah, he's had symptoms, and he's had continuing symptoms, and that's CTE, man. We know what it is now. It's if you've got symptoms like that and they keep happening, you've had traumatic brain injury, you have CTE, and that's a real worry because he's had a number of concussions over the years. Delhi has. It's not the first time he's gone into concussion protocol because he's a bit of a lunatic defensively. Let's be real. He dives all over the place and gets munched quite regularly. So you do take Delhi if he's fit, but who do you replace him with if he's not fit?
Yeah, I know. That's a tough one.
That is a tough one. I think you probably got to go down the line of Josh Giddey. I think that you probably 6'8". Isn't probably going to be playing a lot of game time if he does go. You'd think Simmons, Mills, Tybal, those kind of guys. Ingles could even play, slot in at the 2. Those are the kind of guys that are going to be getting game time. But I would take Josh Giddey because Josh Giddey looks like he is of decent NBA potential. And he's on ESPN's rank at 21 going to the next draft. So
I guess it's around Josh Green territory.
Territory, but I think we've got quite good depth at that 3 spot. I think you'd take Brokoff with a little bit more experience. You got Ingles, you got Exum, whereas that 2 guard spot, you take if Delhi couldn't play, you need a backup point guard, and that's someone who can dime guys up effectively at 6'8" and still growing, and that's Josh Giddey.
That's actually a good pick. It's Giddey behind. It's a massive kick in the teeth to Josh Green, though. I
just think that Josh Green.
I get the logic behind it, but for Giddey to make a squad and Josh Green not to at this stage of his career, I think. If I was Josh Green, I'd be like, "Oh, that sucks," type of thing. To spur him on to be a little bit better, but it's tough. Like I don't see,
it's not like a kick in the teeth to say like, "Oh, you shit." It's just like we have so much depth at the 2-3 spot, and what we really need is another Ben Simmons on the floor, right? We need that guy just be able to dime guys up, which was what Delhi was. Delhi was never a shooter or a scorer. I mean, he did have the few massive games in that FIBA World Cup where he just went absolutely lights out and hit 21 out of off nothing. But he's not in the team for a score. He's in the team for his defense and his ability to pass, and that's exactly what Simmons is in the team for. I mean, Ben Simmons can score, don't get me wrong, but he's in the team for. He's not in the team to go and shoot threes. He's not in the team to go and get into the mid range. That's what Patty Mills is. And Ingles is for, and these guys and Baines and Landau, and these are the guys that can run the lanes and move. And my only caveat with there is if Exum isn't available, you take Green. You know what I mean? Like that's
I think so.
Side.
Yeah.
And if Delhi's not available, you take Giddey. That's the flip side there.
So what was your lineup? What was your projected 12?
Projected 12. Okay, let me go down. Matisse Tybalt, Ben Simmons, Patty Mills, Don Maker, Jock Landau, Joe Ingles, Isaac Humphries, Chris Goulding, Dante Exum, Matthew Dellavedova, Aaron Baines, Ryan Broekhoff.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good 12.
And then obviously for switching out at Exum injured, Josh Green in, Delhi injured, Matthew Gideon.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that Giddy spot. It's actually behind a fair bit of power, like a fair bit of TNT for Josh Giddy. I don't see him getting minutes behind Simmons, Thibault, and Patty Mills.
You don't see him getting a lot of minutes behind Simmons, Thibault, but you also don't want games that are a little bit stretched. You don't want Patty and Simmons playing a lot of minutes, right? But you still want a guy out there who can facilitate in that. And that's Delhi, right? That's what Delhi's spot is. That's what he's done pretty much his whole career. You take Delhi out of that team injury. Who do you put in his place as a pure point guard? Who do you put in his place? There's really no one else there to put in his place except Josh Giddey. You know, Josh Green's a 3-and-D kind of guy. We've got Gerald Reith, obviously, center. Mitch Norton, not really. Brock Modem's a shooter. Mitch McCarron.
Yeah, I could see McCarron or Norton, but they're like low tier guys.
McCarron's savvy, but not someone you're going to put the hands of. Mitch Creek doesn't make the team, even though he's a great player. I do rate him highly. It's just we've got so much higher talent that instead of playing 30 games a year, he's playing 82 in the NBA, and playing these guys night in, night out. And if you want to win, a medal, you're going to take your best guys. That's my 12, and with those two caveats in there. But look, man, we're kind of.
So I'm just kind of arranging it so like we've got some positions going on just to see like the amount of players at certain positions. So what's that? Is that 12? That's not 12. We're probably missing the two who could play up, really, like one more of those. If Delhi was at that level, I think sorry, not Delhi. Exum was at that level. You go, yeah, sweet, that fits perfectly. But from Exum to the next guy up, it's like there's not the same player there. Maybe it's Giddey, maybe it's Josh Green. Green 6'6", he could play that kind of 2-3 maybe. But the other thing too is you put Patty Mills, Ben Simmons, and Thibault in this team, and it's like you could probably get through an entire tournament with just those three guys. And Joe Ingles can handle the ball. So it's do you go with a little bit light in the guard department for a little bit more sort of size, or do you go one extra guard and then you sacrifice maybe one extra guy who can defend a little bit? So it's interesting. It's a good wrinkle to have though, like for an Aussie team to be like, wow, we've got too many guys here. Holy shit.
Yeah, and that's something we kind of never had before. It's been set in stone. It's been like, who do we fill this team with? You know what I mean? Like, World Cup, it was like, all right, David Barlow's coming into this team. And,
poor old David Barlow.
Nothing on David Barlow. He's a great player. But, that just shows you now we're leaving out the likes of, potentially Josh Green, Giddey, Nick Kay, who was a shoe-in, Will Magnay. These guys are, stalwarts of the NBA. Deng Adele, Mitch Creek, shoe-in the last. Oh, no, he didn't get picked, and then he got picked because Xavier Cooks was injured.
Yeah, I remember something happened.
Remember that. Xavier Cooks isn't going to have enough game time to be, valid for this team. But look, definitely one for the future. What I don't see a lot of in this team, to be completely honest with you, is shooting. Guys that can create the shot off the dribble. There's only really Patty. Maybe Josh Green. Not Dante Exum. Not Ben Simmons.
Matisse Thybulle?
No. He's more of a slasher defender. Maybe that's why you bring Broekhoff into that team to play that oversized 2-3 spot. Guy can create his own shot off the dribble. He can do. We've seen it effectively in the Dallas. And he was unlucky not to get picked up. He was going to be picked up by the 76ers last year and got waived, unfortunately, this year. But it's a good problem to have. It really is. And bigs are most likely to go down, so we'll take it. We'll take a backup big with us just to make sure. And you probably look at you probably have to look at Stuart Reith, I think, as your backup big. He's having a good time over there in Serbia.
So a couple of guys have just kind of fallen out of the, like Manga Mathiang. It's just kind of fallen away.
Yeah, I mean, played some games with the Hornets. Was in the G League. Playing Italy, I think, the last time I heard of. Jonah Bolden obviously just falling off the face of the planet.
Yeah, that was the other one. It's just, and they're like, the Bolden one hurts, man, because he's kind of glue it forward. That really kind of solves a lot of problems if you have Jonah Bolden in there, a fit and firing Jonah Bolden in there.
It solves a ton of problems. It solves a lot of problems. Because he can really shoot the ball, he can facilitate, and he can defend, which, Thon hasn't been in the greatest of form. Humfo's not a great stretch five. Bainesy hasn't been in great form this year. I mean, these guys are getting old, so we're going to need the next lot of centers to come through. It's a shame because Will Magnate's probably like 2 seasons in the G League just away from just being like, perfect fit in this team because he can defend and shoot the 3-ball. So yeah, that's it's an interesting wrinkle to have. It's an interesting team. Let's see if it even goes ahead. I mean, this is all theoretical on paper at the moment.
Yeah, true.
And unfortunately, there's no lead in tournaments. But yeah, let's see what the Gorge can put together in a short period of time.
Yep. We might leave it there. We'll actually revisit this because this is I think this is a good team and it's an interesting team to kind of follow along with too because we've got a few NBA talented guys. The other thing too is like these NBA guys might just be like, nah, stick close in the NBA season, we're out. And it's like
they've all said that the Olympics, even Bron, who said that he doesn't want to play the All-Star game, they said the Olympics is the goal.
Yeah, okay.
So that's...
Okay, fair enough. That's quite reassuring.
They've all said
but that I guess has always been the issue where you're just like, oh yeah, how good's this team going to be with Ben Simmons in it? And then Ben Simmons is like, and I'm out. And everyone's like, oh shit, we're scrambling around for some guards. Fuck. Patty Mills, okay, Patty, okay, off a curl, Patty, you want to ISO? Yep, Patty. Like
39 minutes and 43 seconds. Oh, Patty, have a quick rest. 70. All right, back on the floor.
Yeah. Oh, hang on, no, don't go out. Come back in. Like you're not going out yet. So it's going to be. I think it's going to be interesting to follow. I think we should follow it pretty closely this year. Put together a little projected squad type of thing because there is a couple of guys that'll get cut there. There's definitely like 3 or 4 guys where you're just like, nah, you're not making the squad. But you're right. I think about Magne. I think Magne might be good in the next 3 or 4 years. It would be disappointing if kind of off the back of Nick K's heroics, he doesn't make the team. But obviously it's great for the team where you're just like, wow, Nick K's not making this team. This must be a decent team. And there's a couple of little ones like that where you're just like, wow, like, Giddy's not making it or Josh Green's not even making this team. Like, this is a good team. So,
yeah, this is the best.
All right. Well, as always, as always, like, share, and subscribe on Facebook and YouTube, Twitter, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict, and SoundCloud. But yeah, this has been interesting. A little boomers chat. We might come back and do this in a couple of weeks and just see where we're at, and actually like do a bit more grading and ranking, and look a little bit more in depth around some of the guys that can actually fit this team and what they can do, and then having a look at it because it's an interesting little wrinkle that the Aussie team, little selection headache.
Just an up-to-date as well. We're officially 1/3 of the way through the NBA season. So we're going to be coming up to the half-season reviews pretty soon. Something that we do every year is just rank the NBA Aussies in the NBA team halfway through. And we're just going to be ragging on Rick Carlisle and Luca for the one whole episode.
Rick Carlisle. I got a lot of Aussies in the next few games with the back-to-backs against the Warriors for the Dallas, and then backs-to-backs against Spurs. So I'm going to be watching a lot of Aussies, which is good.
Good, man. I get to watch Aussies every game.
Yeah, I know. You're lucky, man. So as always, we'll see you guys on the next